Hello, welcome back to my channel. Please subscribe to my channel, like my videos, and please check out my channel for other updates. So the last update about Twist of Fate, Prachi cries as Pallavi and Rhea pass wrong information to her, telling her that Ranbir wants to divorce her. Then Aliyah hears Ranbir's conversations with the lawyer, and she decided to tell Rhea that Ranbir wants to give Rhea all his property. Let's continue. Ranbir and Stanley begins to look for the divorce papers. Ranbir tells Stanley that the papers in my room was not divorce papers and I had kept the divorce papers here. Stanley says it was the same and asks Ranbir to think in flashback. Ranbir says I had kept it here. I don't know where it has gone. Help me to search for it. Pallavi comes there and asks that what is Ranbir searching for. Ranbir says envelope. Pallavi says I did not see it and says maybe some guest has found it and thrown it. She then remembers and tells Ranbir that she found it and she gave it to Rhea. Ranbir thanks Pallavi. Stanley says to Ranbir that I had told you. Pallavi asks Stanley why is he getting familiar with her family. Stanley says family is lovely. Rhea asks Prachi what she said. Prachi says she is pregnant and says I don't know if I did right or not by telling you the truth. Prachi says to Rhea that Ranbir is going to become my baby's father and you are dreaming to marry him. She says nobody will be happy with this. Rhea says she doesn't care about other people's happiness and says this time is for me to be happy. She says I was doubtful on you, but you smartly made Shahana become pregnant. She says you might want to play pregnancy card with me. Prachi says to Rhea that I did not tell this to anyone. She says I returned to tell Ranbir, but I saw him on the wedding altar with you, and that time my trust and love was broken. She says I wanted to tell Ranbir that I became pregnant, and he showed me that we are going to be strangers, and I realized that my baby cannot call him father. Rhea asks Prachi, why didn't you tell Ranbir about your pregnancy? Is it because he might break his relationship with you, saying that your pregnancy belongs to Siddharth? Prachi says it was betrayal. She says my pregnancy was Ranbir's dream, and I hid it from him to take revenge, but I myself felt the pain. Prachi says to Rhea that whenever she used to see Rhea with Ranbir, then she used to feel jealous. She says I was keeping my baby away from his father. She says I am sure that after knowing this, the love which you have for your sister. Rhea cut her short and asked her not to play sister card with her and says you are not my sister, but my second wife. Prachi says to Rhea that blood will be blood and now my baby has the same blood with you. Rhea asks Prachi not to come near her. She says I cannot let history repeat itself and says you used your magic again and you will trap Ranbir using the baby. Prachi says we did not get our parents' love together and says I want my baby to get both parents' love. Prachi says to Rhea that don't tell me that you don't love me and says just like saving me, save my baby's future. Rhea says I shouldn't have saved you. Prachi goes behind Rhea. Rhea pushes her and she falls down. It turns out to be Prachi's imagination. Rhea asks Prachi to congratulate her and says you will be out at 12 a.m. tonight. Prachi goes from there. Rhea throws the paper on the sofa and says tonight Ranbir will be mine and I'm going to get everything. Prachi thinks of Rhea's words. Rhea comes behind Prachi and asks her to listen fully. Prachi asks Rhea that what else does she want to say. Rhea says you did not hear that Ranbir is going to propose to me and he will throw you out. She says you did not hear where you are going to stay after being thrown out. She says if you were my sister, then you would have been on the road. Rhea says to Prachi that Ranbir felt pity on Prachi and bought a house for her, that rented and cheap house, which is per Prachi's standard. She says he would have given you penthouse, a farmhouse, but he is giving it as per your class. Rhea says to Prachi that Ranbir might have thought that you will not make any excuse and you will leave immediately. Rhea says to Prachi that she is good enough not to stop her husband from buying a house for her. She says it was a middle class, a small house. Prachi says enough and congratulates Rhea for the impending news. She says nobody can be more happy than me. Prachi goes and sees Ranbir coming in front of her. Ranbir says to Prachi that I know that you are upset with me as I went to meet Sudha. Prachi says you went to meet Sudha to buy her house. Ranbir says I wanted to buy her house and she was going being angry with me. I needed that house and I convinced her. Prachi says how can you be so selfish and shameless? Ranbir takes Prachi to the room and asks why do you assume things without thought? She says I will not tell you why I am calling you shameless. Ranbir smiles and says to Prachi that if I have a daughter, then she will be like you. Prachi gets teary eyes. Ranbir holds Prachi's hand and says life is strange and sometimes it seems to be easy and sometimes it is difficult. Ranbir wipes Prachi's tears and says no situation is easy with crying. Prachi says to Ranbir that you did not know what I did. Ranbir thinks I don't want you to tell me and asks her to cry on his shoulders. She asks him to stop it and recalls Rhea's words. Prachi asks what is in your pocket. Ranbir says nothing. Prachi asks if there is a ring inside. Ranbir says whatever it is in my pocket. Prachi asks Ranbir if he bought the house for her. Ranbir thinks in his mind that Prachi is jealous and she did not know that he bought that house for them. Prachi thinks that it was my dream house. Ranbir says that house was lucky for me and I bought it for Rhea. Rhea overhears their conversations and gets happy, thinking that Ranbir is madly in love with her. Prachi gets upset and opens the door. She says that house was our dream, in which we stayed together. Ranbir says I know that it was your dream. Rhea comes to the room and thinks to check the envelope. Ranbir is going to his room. Vikram asks Ranbir to sit and have a drink with him. Ranbir says that he has an important work. He asks Vikram why is he sad. Vikram asks him to say and sit on the chair. Vikram says you feel that you are not a good son and I feel that I am not a good husband. Ranbir says bad husband tag is mine and says that he wants to see changes in his life. He asks who wants to be a bad husband. Vikram says all husbands get happy seeing their wives jealous. Ranbir says my wife get angry too. Vikram says it is the identity of a wife. Vikram says all men get foolish after marriage and says if a woman gets angry on a man's foolishness, then they think that they are husband and wife. He asks, where were you going? Ranbir asks, how much drink have you had? Vikram says limited, so that I can stay conscious. Ranbir says to Vikram that I want to tell you my life's truth. Rhea in her room thinks that the papers she saw earlier must be Ranbir and Prachi's divorce papers. Aliyah comes there and asks her. Rhea says it might be their divorce papers and says everything is in her favor and says that Ranbir is buying that apartment for me. He wants to give it to me. He wants to replace their memories with mine, which will be Ranbir and my memories. Rhea tells Aliyah that maybe Ranbir wants her to redesign his rented house and says he is giving me liberty that I should wipe out all the memories of Prachi in him. Stanley changes his clothes and thinks that now Pallavi will not question him. Aliyah asks Rhea, do you think that this is a divorce paper or property papers? Rhea says this must surely be divorce papers, else I am pretty sure that this is a gift for me to make me happy. Aliyah asks, who gave you this? Rhea says mommy gave me, but mommy asked me not to open it and I couldn't behave impatient. Aliyah asks Rhea to open the envelope and see. Rhea is about to open the envelope and says it is a gift for me. Pallavi asks what gift? Aliyah says Rhea is asking me for a gift. Stanley peeps into the room and thinks that this is the divorce papers. Aliyah kicks the divorce papers to hide it. Rhea says I am asking my aunt to come downstairs and she is insisting to rest. She says we should all go downstairs. They go down while Stanley comes to the room. Prachi comes to Grandma's room saying that she is leaving the room. She asks what happened to Grandma. Shahana says Grandma had a hard drink by mistake. She asks if she is leaving as Ranbir forgot their anniversary. Prachi says that Ranbir remembers that it is the same day when he left Rhea and come to me, and to make up for that, he wants to propose to Rhea at 12 a.m. and he bought our rented apartment, which was my dream home for Rhea. Shahana says to Prachi that I thought that Ranbir bought the house for you. Prachi says it was my dream house and Ranbir is giving it to Rhea. It seems that Ranbir wants to wipe out all our memories. Prachi says Ranbir is hurting me very much and she asks Shahana. She says before anyone asks me to, then I will go by myself. Prachi says today Ranbir is going to propose to Rhea with a ring at 12 a.m. She says she really doesn't care whatever he wants to do. She says I don't want to face anything. I don't deserve this. She says I came to tell Grandma that I am leaving and she asks Shahana to come and pack their bags. Vikram asks Ranbir that what do you want to tell me about your life? I know your life is messed up and it will be fine. He asks what do you want to say? Ranbir recalls Prachi's pregnancy revelation, his promise to Prachi and also buying house for Prachi and seeking divorce from Rhea. Ranbir tells Vikram that he wants to take divorce from Rhea and says that a small person came to my life who made me understand everything. He says Prachi and I are becoming 3 from 2. He says I am going to be dad and you. He finds Vikram sleeping and says you are going to become grandfather. I need to work for that. I will take divorce from Rhea today. Stanley gets the divorce papers from Rhea's room and he is about to leave. He hears Aliyah and Rhea coming there and he hides in the room. Aliyah gets her phone ringing and she is leaving, and she sees Stanley hiding and asks, "Who are you?" Stanley comes out from the hideout and says, "I," but he couldn't talk. Pallavi comes there and says, "I think we should call the police." Aliyah is about to call the police. Ranbir comes there and takes the phone. He says, "I told you that he is Stanley." He says, "I sent him to your room by mistake." He takes Stanley out and says, "If Rhea catches you, then she will send you to the police." Stanley tells Ranbir that Rhea was about to read the divorce papers, but Pallavi came there, and the rest you all know. Ranbir says he has a good idea to take Rhea's signature and says, "I will bend down on my knees and I will apologize to her asking for divorce." He says, "I am sure that Rhea will not question me. I am giving her so much." Ranbir says to Stanley that if we take Rhea's signature in a drunken state, then Rhea might commit suicide the next day, and Prachi will not talk to me being her sister. He says he will say the truth. Aliyah says that they are enjoying the party. Rhea thinks that this is the only idea which she enjoyed thoroughly. Prachi tells Shahana that she doesn't want to stay here. She sees Ranbir and says he is searching for Rhea. Ranbir thinks to convince Rhea with love and she will divorce him, and thinks that he loves his wife and he has to convince Rhea for that. He comes to Rhea and says, "I need to talk to you." Rhea thinks that 30 minutes is remaining for 12 a.m. So why do Ranbir wants to propose to me now? Ranbir asks Rhea to come and he holds her hand. He takes her with him. Prachi says, "I want to know why Ranbir took Rhea with him." Pallavi says there is still time for 12 a.m. Ranbir takes Rhea to the terrace. Prachi says Ranbir is checking if he has ring or not and says he will mislead the opposite person that his heart beat for her. She says she wants to scratch Rhea's face as she is expecting her husband to propose to her. Shahana says you both are hopeful. Ranbir bends down on his knees. Rhea thinks that Ranbir is proposing to her. Ranbir thinks I will not tell Rhea that I am leaving her for Prachi, and I should look apologetic. Rhea asks Ranbir to say it. Ranbir says, "I want to tell you that I am a very helpless person." Rhea says to Ranbir that whatever you will say will not be lie. Prachi says lie seems to be strange on liar's face. She says, "I want to scratch both Ranbir and Rhea's faces." Shahana says, "Don't scratch my face." Ranbir says sometimes a thing is different from others' perspective. What is right for you might be wrong for others. Prachi says that Ranbir wants to tell Rhea that our marriage was wrong. Rhea asks Ranbir what is he saying. Ranbir says we shouldn't have gotten married. Rhea says you wanted to marry me later. Ranbir says you have suicidal tendency, and that is why I want to tell you that I want to. He couldn't talk again, and Rhea says it is easy to say it, just say it. Ranbir tries to tell Rhea that he wanted a divorce from Rhea, but he couldn't say it. Prachi says Ranbir is going to propose to Rhea. Rhea says you don't want to say it. Everyone knows what you wanted to say. She asks him to make her wear the ring and says my answer is yes. Rhea says to Ranbir that I know that the ring in your pocket is for me and you have bought a flat for me. Ranbir is shocked. Ranbir asks Rhea that who told you that I want to propose to you? He gets up. Prachi says I cannot see it anymore and she goes. Shahana calls Prachi and goes behind her. Ranbir hears her and goes behind Prachi. Rhea says what the hell just happened? Ranbir wanted to propose to me and he went behind Prachi whom he is leaving. Ranbir asks Prachi what is she doing? Prachi says she is stitching the cloth. She takes off the cloth from her cupboard. Ranbir asks her to enjoy the party. Prachi says should I serve drinks and food in the party? Ranbir says no, don't do it. Prachi says I am leaving the house. Ranbir asks what? Rhea thinks that Ranbir might have told Prachi everything that he wants to divorce Prachi, so Prachi wants to leave the house because of shame. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like this video as it helps the channel, and please share this video and subscribe to my channel for more updates. Thank you.